What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Go Talk with Marcus, powered by Poddex, fueled by Goat Fuel. Steezy A Smith will be joining us in a moment, but here with me right now, Jerm, one half of the crew at Stuff About Sports. What's up, my man? How you doing?
What's up, bro? How you feeling?
Feeling good. It's one of my favorite times of the year. NBA playoff time is here. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, the Jazz and the Mavericks are playing right now as we speak. We've got a full slate of games afterwards, so we're going to try to not take up all of you guys' time and take away from the basketball. And the NBA playoffs, though, before we get into the series, I think we have to talk about probably one of the most interesting post-game moments we've seen in a while.
Yep.
That's Pat Bev and the Minnesota Timberwolves crew celebrating like crazy as if they had just won the NBA championship after beating the Clippers in the first play-in game of the Western Conference to lock up the 7th seed. What was your reaction to that? Because I was sitting there like really confused. And me and my friends were kind of like laughing at the whole thing. How were you? What was your initial reaction to Pat Bev and company just going berserk out there in Minnesota?
I loved it. I love when the villains win. And there's some context you have to have here. The Minnesota Timberwolves, actually, I should say the Seattle Supersonics, for those who are old enough to remember that franchise, have won a playoff series more recently than the Minnesota Timberwolves. I will say that again. The Seattle Supersonics, okay, which haven't been in the league for, it has to be at least a decade now, probably more, have won a playoff series more recently than the Minnesota Timberwolves. So jump on the table, blow confetti. These franchises that are stuck in mediocrity for so long, we forget the toll that it takes, especially if you're a fan of a team that's been recently winning. I'm a Sixers fan. We were tanking on purpose. So I understand making it to the playoffs. Thankfully, this play-in tournament it was here for them to do that. But it's a step in the right direction. They've been building something. So yeah, take time to celebrate. Who is upset at happiness? Tell me, who's miserable, mad that the Minnesota Timberwolves are happy? And they should be able to celebrate wins. That life is about celebrating small victories. This is a milestone for that franchise that has been awful. That franchise, the only thing that franchise has is Kevin Garnett. And so you have to celebrate something. So that's not the Celtics. It's not the Lakers. There's no standard for them. So let them start to build something and celebrate. That's how I feel.
I thought it was bizarre. Understandably so, as far as why they're celebrating and what it means. I get it. It was just really weird to just kind of see how it all unfolded. I mean, Look, good for them. Kudos to them. As I said the other night, that's a great celebration. They'll probably get swept out of the first round by the Memphis Grizzlies. So they might steal a game. Who knows? But it's nice for them to get into the playoffs. I just look at it, and that was just such an interesting game. Specifically, just especially like how it kind of all unfolded in the back end. Like, Cat was playing really aggressively, struggling offensively, fouled out with like 7 minutes left to go in the game. And it really took, oddly enough, it took Pat Bev to kind of have one of the best 7-minute defensive stretches of his life for them to win this basketball game. So I'm not going to lie. Me and my friends did a lot of laughing about it just because it's not something you don't see. It's just a really weird thing to see. It's really, really bizarre. Just to see how it all unfolded was just really, really bizarre. But I mean, you're right. This team doesn't make it to the playoffs. This team doesn't do much of anything. So this is a win for them. If this is how they react at the end of a play-in game, imagine what it would look like when they win one of these playoff games. So
for sure.
It'll be crazy. Speaking of, do you think Minnesota can steal a game from Memphis? Because Memphis has been one of the better teams in the league this season, which I think has come as a shock. I think we all knew they'd improve, but I didn't think anyone thought that they would be the second seed in the Western Conference and one of the better teams in the league all around. And they played really well without Ja Morant. Now Ja's back, obviously, but that was kind of the thing too: is how long would he be out? But he's back. Their first game is tomorrow. Can Minnesota steal a game from Memphis in this series?
Not only can Minnesota steal one game, they're going to steal 2, possibly 3. Um, I spoiler, I'm going to predict Memphis to win in about 6 games, which means the T-Wolves would have to win more than 1 game. The Timberwolves can score. They have offense. That's what they do. That's what they've been doing all year. That's why they're here, right? Karl Anthony Towns is most likely the most overrated player in this generation, but
Yes.
he's not relied to score on, right? Anthony Edwards, D'Angelo Russell. I think what really will separate this team or this series is home court, which is why I'm leaning towards Memphis. Also, they have the best player, and when teams are close, you have to start nitpicking. Home court's going to matter, and just simply having the best player matters. I don't know who's going to guard Ja Morant. I don't think they have a defensive answer. But Karl Anthony Towns will crumble. It really will just depend on if Dylan Brooks or Ja Morant can slow down Anthony Edwards, because I don't think D'Angelo Russell can carry the team. Don't count on Cat. That should be on a t-shirt somewhere. Don't count on Cat, because for some reason he gets so much love, and yet he hasn't done anything with that franchise. Anthony Edwards, D'Angelo Russell, Pat Beverly have come in and done stuff. So I think Minnesota can score with Memphis. I just don't know if defensively they'll be able to stop Ja Morant.
I think Triple J is going to have the time of his life against Cat. Like, offensively and defensively, I'm not counting on Cat to do. Like, will Cat put up numbers? I mean, I would hope so. I would hope he doesn't start any of these games off 0 for 7. Because unlike the Los Angeles Clippers, I think and a lot of it has to do obviously with PG, or not so much PG, but Kawhi having not been there as well. But like the Grizzlies can get shots up and can score points outside of just Ja and Triple J. Like, Desmond Bane can give you buckets, Dylan Brooks can give you buckets. Like they have a well-balanced offensive attack, and they have a really solid defense as well. Triple J, I think, is going to feast on Cat offensively and defensively. Like, Jaren Jackson may very well average like 20 and 12 in this series, and I wouldn't be surprised. He could push 20 and 15. The one thing I will say, and I think the most interesting factor of all this, I think, is Anthony Edwards. I love watching Anthony Edwards play. I think he's a box office attraction. It's going to be interesting to see him in his first playoff series. It's going to be nice to see that Anthony Edwards versus Ja Morant thing. I know they won't be like one-on-one with each other often, but it'll just be nice to see two young stars going at it. I think Minnesota can steal a game. I think it'll likely be a home game just because they'll have all that energy and stuff. I think they'll come out one of those home games really, really fast. I think this series, I think Minnesota's hope to steal more than one game, I think, lies a lot more on Anthony Edwards' shoulder than anyone else's. Just because I feel like as much as people talk, as much as Cat talks about himself, because I don't really hear a lot of other people outside of Minnesota talking about Karl Anthony Towns. As much as Cat talks about himself and says he's the greatest shooting big man of all time and all the other nonsense, like this team specifically offensively goes as Anthony Edwards goes. Like, D'Lo can give you 20, 25 a game. He could go off for 30 or 40 because he has in him. Like, if Anthony Edwards isn't having a good game, this team really isn't going to flourish and really develop and really like be competitive in this series. So it'll be interesting to see how they come out. I think they'll steal a game at home. Outside of that, I don't know how many more games they'll steal. But then again, these are two really scrappy teams. And like, even though Memphis is clearly the better team by, I would say, a lot, either of these games, because of the scrappy nature of the basketball teams, either of these games can go either way. Like, it's very possible for Minnesota to steal a game in Memphis. It's possible for Memphis to steal a game in Minnesota. Like, it can really go up and down. I think Memphis will still get the job done and move on to the second round 100%. But I'll give Minnesota one game because they have the scrappiness and because one of those home games will just be crazy. Likely game 3, I think. That's the game I have them winning. I think they'll win game 3. It'll be interesting to see. I think this will probably be the most interesting of this series. I said on my show last week that I thought the Clippers could beat the Grizzlies, and I got laughed at. But like, I think that the Grizzlies series was always going to be the most interesting one, just because they so exceeded our expectations, and they're such a young basketball team. We're getting now one young team versus another young team, so we're really going to see a lot of good basketball. We're probably going to see a lot of mistakes and errors that come with being young and being in your first playoff series. So this one I think would be the most interesting of all the playoff series. Like, no one cares about whoever the Suns, like the Suns sweep whoever they play. Like, you know what I mean? Like, some of these series you just kind of lock in as like, they're done. Like the Bulls are going to get blasted by the Bucks. Like, no one really is going to watch those. Right. But this one's going to be, I think, the most interesting of all the first round playoff series. One just looking at interesting, right? The Celtics have kind of been on a hot streak of late, right? They
Yeah.
flipped a switch crazily and turned themselves into, I believe they locked themselves into the second seed in the playoffs. So they've got the Brooklyn Nets. What's your take on this series, right? Because the Celtics are hot. The Nets were kind of, I think, going into this bar none the best play-in team. Like of the teams in the field, I think it was clear that this was the best team in that position.
Right.
And the only reason they were in the play-in obviously was because Kyrie was in and out of the lineup due to the vaccine mandate, and then KD had also missed a chunk of the season. Is this a lock for Boston? Does Brooklyn get the job done as a 7 seed? Where are you going with the Brooklyn and the Boston series?
So it's crazy because the Cavs series, the Cavs are stylistically close to the Celtics in terms of roster composition. The only difference really is skill levels. So I was really interested in the play-in game because people are saying Milwaukee actively ducked Brooklyn by allowing the Celtics to get that number 2 seed. So I was really paying attention to this game. I think they did too, but it is what it is. Kyrie and Kevin Durant are extremely dangerous together. And, I think they have in the league, they average 122.8 points per 100 possessions. It was like some crazy stat I looked up before we came on here. The problem with that is that's great for regular season wins. And we talked about Brooklyn earlier in the season. This is back when they still had James Harden. The problem is, and will always be, and what's going to be the difference in this series is depth. The others, you can't have Seth Curry out there putting up 0 points. You can't, Patty Mills sporadically deciding he wants to shoot threes. There's no Josh Harris. Who's going to be the guy if the scrappiness and the only respite that I think that Brooklyn has is that the Time Lord ain't going to be there. I'm pretty sure. I don't think Robert Williams is going to be back for this series.
I don't think so either.
I don't think so either. So, I mean, and if he is, it's not going to be game 1, 2, or 3. So, you better take advantage of Time Lord not being there because he's the best defender they got on a team of defensive, a team of defensive player of the year candidates, namely Marcus Smart. Yeah. So I think Jason Tatum and Kevin Durant, I'm going to say cancel each other out, but I don't really like Kevin Durant's obviously the better player. But what I'm saying is offensively, those two will do what they got to do. And so not cancel each other out where they won't be non-factors. It's, what you're getting with Kevin Durant. You know what you're getting with Jason Tatum. Is Jaylen Brown going to show up? Is Kyrie Irving going to show up? And I think if you stop, and I think Kyrie is the target. If you can slow him down and just put it all on Kevin Durant, I think you can win that series as Boston. And they still have 2 bigs that will slow down anything that Brooklyn can throw at them. So the trick is you can't let Kyrie have one of those games like he had the other week where he was doing turnaround fadeaways out of bounds and still making it. Like those games are going to happen, but those games are regular season performances. I don't know if that happens 4 out of 7 games. And if it does, then shame on Boston for not making those adjustments. I just think, Boston's too small and Brooklyn is too small and Boston's way too scrappy for Brooklyn to actually. It's NBA is a game of matchups, specifically in the playoffs, which is exactly why the Bucks dodged Brooklyn. I think the Celtics match up perfectly with any. I think Brooklyn. I think besides maybe Philly. There's no other team matchup they could have asked worse for than Boston. So I think the Celtics definitely can keep this thing going.
Before we continue, Steezy A Smith joining us now. What's up, brother? How you doing?
Was on mute for a little bit. How you guys doing, my brothers?
What's going on?
Doing good. Real quick, Boston and Brooklyn. Definitely going to be an interesting series. Obviously, Celtics have been on a roll. Can they stay on a roll against KD, Kyrie, and the Brooklyn Nets and walk out of the first round, going to the second round? Or do you think the Nets can pull it out of the hat?
I think if Ben Simmons comes back, I think Brooklyn definitely has it in the bag. But if he doesn't come back, I think Boston can really make a fight. But I think at the end of the day, I mean, look, Brooklyn has two of the best players two of the best players in the series. KD, Kyrie. I love what Tatum's been doing. He's definitely a top 5 candidate for MVP. I could see him being on the All-NBA first team. I could see Marcus Smart being a front runner for the Defensive Player of the Year. And I think you alluded to this, but Boston finished number 1 in terms of least amount of points allowed. And so defensively, they're very stingy, but they are missing a Robert Williams. Robert Williams was their leading shot blocker, leading rebounder. He's their hustle guy. He's their energy guy. And I don't know if he's going to be back. And so I think that he's going to be the key. I know Jerm, I heard him talking about matchups and whatnot. If Robert Williams is there, he's definitely going to cause a problem for Brooklyn, especially on the interior. But at the moment, he's not. And we're hearing that Ben Simmons should be back by game 3 or game 4. I'm not saying he's all of a sudden going to be, this guy who's going to provide a huge impact, but at least defensively, he's going to be able to hinder Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. And you still have a KD who could turn it up a notch, especially come playoff time defensively. And so I think ultimately Brooklyn does come out on top, but Boston does make it a dogfight all the way up to 7 games. But I think Brooklyn, they have the 2 best players in this series, like I said. So they escape in 7 games.
I know he was a part-timer all season, right? We kind of forgot about him because we didn't see him as often. But I think Kyrie Irving is the X factor in this series by a lot. Like, I don't even think it's close. Like, because as Jeremy said earlier, KD and Jason Tatum are going to cancel each other out in a way. Like both of them, I think, are going to average 25, maybe 30 points a series. Like, I think that's a lock. The question then becomes, what second fiddle, what 1B is going to be more reliable? Is going to be Jaylen Brown, or is going to be Kyrie Irving? Now, I think it's going to be Kyrie Irving because for the first time in a long time, he's on a basketball team where he doesn't have to be the guy. He doesn't have to do all of the, he should not feel inclined to be the guy. Anyway, the one thing that I think could get in the way for the Nets is if on a game-to-game basis, Kyrie's taking more shots than KD. That can't happen. If KD, I think on the backstretch of the season, once Kyrie had fully become a full-time player after the mandate was lifted, he was averaging about 6 more shots attempted than KD. That's not a winning recipe for success in the playoffs. Now, maybe that's because we wanted to get Kyrie fully into the swing of things because he wasn't playing like every 6 days. He's playing back-to-backs and he's playing like every other day and things like that. And so maybe that's what it is. But in a playoff series, Kyrie Irving cannot be taking more shots than Kevin Durant. That's not a winning recipe. Now, last week, I said that the Brooklyn Nets have a legitimate shot. I said that if the Nets and the Bucks matched up, because at the time last week, the Bucks were the 2nd seed, I'd have the Nets beating the Bucks in the first round because Kevin Durant, basically almost by himself, if it weren't for his foot being just an inch too big, would have eliminated the Milwaukee Bucks by himself last year in the playoffs. That didn't happen. Now he's got Kyrie, and I think that means a lot. So, like, say what you want about Kyrie and his conspiracy theories and his decision to remain unvaccinated throughout the course of the season, and as many, including one Stephen A. Smith, will tell you, probably is the reason why the Brooklyn Nets are the 7th seed instead of a top 4 seed in the playoffs. Like, he's still there. He's still the box office. He's still very talented, and you can still lock him in for about 20 to 25 points a night in a playoff series. I think the Brooklyn Nets are going to win the series. I think it'll go to 7. It'll take Brooklyn to steal a game on the road, obviously. The Ben Simmons factor, and I really want Jerm to talk about it, but I don't care if Ben Simmons comes back or he doesn't. Like, because as I've been saying all season, it's nice to have Ben Simmons back on a defensive side of things, and I'll give you that point. But Ben Simmons, this offense is still going to be unbalanced with Ben Simmons on the floor because he's not a threat offensively. He's not a threat with the ball in his hands. He's not a threat without the ball in his hands. So if Ben Simmons kicks it to KD and then goes drifting to the 3-point line, all right, Boston's just going to play 5-on-4 defense until Ben gets the ball back in his hands. And quite frankly, you can leave him open because he's afraid to shoot. And as I've been saying all season about Ben Simmons isn't just going to magically decide in the playoff game, especially in a playoff game, oh, I'm just going to start shooting the ball now because I'm no longer in Philly. Like, I don't think that's how it, like, that's not what he's going to do. Like, and we've seen the summer videos over the course of his career of him shooting shots and going 10 in a row and 20 in a row. And that's all great, but he doesn't do it in a game. And so because he doesn't do it in the game, I don't care that you can hit 10 consecutive 3-pointers in an empty gym with nobody in front of you. And it's not a playoff environment. It's dead silent, probably in the middle of the morning, like 9:00. Like, I don't think Ben Simmons is going to be a factor, whether he comes back game 3. I don't care when he comes back. He's not going to be a factor, I don't think, offensively. And even if he is a factor offensively, it's not going to be enough to tip the scales to the point where if Brooklyn's down come game 3, say they're down 2-1 or something, oh, Ben Simmons is going to be the reason why the Brooklyn Nets come back if they're down in this series. Like, that's not going to be the case at all. So good for Ben if he decides to come back and finally do what he gets paid to do, which is play basketball. But I really don't. Ben Simmons can never step foot on a basketball court for the rest of the season. That's not going to improve or hinder the chances of the Brooklyn Nets making it to potentially and winning an NBA championship this season. Not that I think they will, but Ben Simmons isn't going to bolster that on any level. I don't think, at least.
And I know you wanted Jerm to go, but real quick, bro, I just wanted to say, I think with Ben Simmons, though, look, Boston plays a lot of small ball. And so if you have a Ben Simmons and a KD on the floor for Brooklyn, you got two, 6'10", 6'11", sub 7-foot guys. And I feel like you can counteract, the small ball that Boston tends to play. They usually roll out an Al Horford or a Daniel Tice at the 5. And those guys are undersized anyway. And so I think if you put Ben Simmons in the dunker spot, he could definitely, and we're not hoping for a repeat of what he was doing in Philadelphia. Last time we saw him in the dunker spot, he was, giving up wide open dunks and giving it to Matisse Thybulle, who ultimately missed free throws or whatnot. But I think that in Brooklyn, him in the dunkers role, him being alongside of KD, him being able to play potentially a small ball 5, I think that would work to Brooklyn's advantage. And one more thing, Jerm, I wanted to ask you, and when you probably seen this too, but Ben Simmons is walking around with Jordan-like confidence. What do you guys have to say about that? Because I thought that was ridiculous.
He's got to be talking about Jordan's son, who couldn't even play at UCF. He can't be possibly talking about the great Michael Jordan. That is ridiculous. When I read that, I thought Ball Sack Sports got me because I said, no way. Ben Simmons, I don't care if he does. I read that he was coming back. Great. I actually hope he does, because that actually makes me even more confident that instead of the Celtics winning in 7, the Celtics will win in 6.
Oh,
the Celtics were Ben Simmons' kryptonite even when he was in Philly. I love how Boston fans and NBA fans in general think that they're going to get some theoretical version of Ben Simmons. I like to go by track record. I like to go by history. Guys, this isn't the YMCA. And even if it was, if you're in a rec league and you haven't played basketball in a year and you go into the rec league championship game, you're probably not going to do too well. So, or even if you stepped on the court right now, if all three of us went on the court right now, I haven't played a competitive game in basketball in at least 3 or 4 years. And I used to be decent. I would be trash right now. Ben Simmons, when you get up to the elite of the elite, you don't just do shoot-arounds at practice and then step into a playoff game. He hurt his back doing nothing. So, I mean, I don't you think you're just going to run up and down the court, even on a minutes restriction? How valuable you're going to be? So he's not going to just step in and become Magic Johnson and find all these magical lanes. He is a ball stopper. It is automatic. He is only good. He is only good in transition. People, I think they overvalue his passing skills. I think they overvalue his point guard skills. Ben Simmons was only dangerous, and he is in transition because he's long enough, he's fast enough, he's athletic enough to grab a rebound and get the ball down the court and find the Jokic kind of has that. He can get the rebound and find the guy down the court because his eyes are all the way down the court. Offensively, you already said it. You're playing 4-on-5 basketball. You put him in the dunker spot to do what? He's not physical enough. He can't do it. If I've watched plenty of Sixers games where Brett Brown tried to put him at the 4, it didn't work. When Jimmy Butler was here, you take the ball. You have to put the ball in Ben Simmons' hands. That's why the Jimmy Butler thing didn't work. Ben Simmons can't play off ball, not offensively. He just sits there. If Brooklyn does that, you're taking the ball out of whose hands? Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant. You're just going to have them run around and do what? Like that. Now you're taking away from what they do. Ben Simmons is a player, and I'm going to say this seriously, even though I don't think it should ever happen. He's the type of player you build around. You have to do what Milwaukee did with Giannis. You have to surround Ben Simmons with nothing but shooters who don't need the ball in their hands. Let him dictate everything. He would be a lot better off. This Brooklyn thing is going to be a disaster. Watch.
Wow. So this is my thing about Ben Simmons, and I've said on this show a couple of times, right? Like I've had I've had 2 good history teachers in my life, one in high school, one in college. And both of them always tell me you have to pay attention to history, lest you're doomed to repeat it. Gentlemen, one of the worst playoff games I've ever seen in my life was by one Ben Simmons in a playoff series against these Boston Celtics. He posted 1 point, one singular point in a playoff game. Ben Simmons hasn't played basketball since he basically folded like a lawn chair against the Atlanta Hawks in last year's playoff series. We haven't seen him on an NBA basketball court in a minute. And it's nice that he's been getting shots up, like that's cool, but you cannot there is no way possible you can simulate game speed in a playoff environment, in a tough playoff environment that is the Boston Celtics and TD Garden. Like, you can't simulate that in your practice facility in Brooklyn. No matter how hard you try, you can't do that. So I don't care if Ben Simmons comes back in game 3. I don't care if Ben Simmons comes back game 4, 5, 6, 7. I don't care if Ben Simmons comes back game 2 if he wants to. Ben Simmons is not going to be the thing that tips the needle in Brooklyn's favor, because if you think that Brooklyn can't win the series without him, they're not going to win. You shouldn't think that Ben Simmons coming back is going to mean that they can win the series with him. Will he improve their defense? Yeah, because they can't play defense. They don't have a good defender. So I guess by default,
and that's what he does. And I will, like I said, I don't want to sound like I'm crapping all over him. He's a good defender. However, part of me thinks that this story is nonsense. It's playoff time. You're trying to keep Boston Celtics on their toes. I don't think Ben Simmons has any. I don't think he's playing at all. I think it's just one of those things. Yeah, I think it's just one of those things that they're trying to keep Boston on their toes to get whatever competitive advantage. Much like how the Patriots used to put Tom Brady on the injury report all the time, or I think it's one of those things. I don't know how much that works, but Ben Simmons is the only X factor, right? So like, you use that to your advantage. Hey, might play. Who says they're coming back game 4 or 5 or 6? Like, how do you even know the games are going to go that far? Who says that? Like, why not just say, hey, he may be coming back in the playoffs?
Built-in cushion, so that in the off chance that the Nets get swept, he's like, oh, well, I was ready, but there wasn't a game 5.
Yeah, whatever. Listen, Bennifer Simmons is not playing. And the fact that they even compared him to Jordan is the problem that the Sixers had with him. You're coddling a guy who has unjust adulation, right? Unearned arrogance, word of the day. That feeds into that. The Sixers gave him so much unearned arrogance because he was part of the process that they chose to keep him, even though he was already a problem, over Jimmy Butler. They traded for Al Horford when they could have gotten shooters. They let go of Ersan Ilyasova and Marco Bellinelli. That was the best team we had, and we just needed a little bit more seasoning.
And Jerm, didn't you guys have JJ Redick as well?
We had JJ Redick. No, yes.
It was a fantastic season.
We had a fantastic
everywhere.
The luckiest shot in the history of history is the reason why the Philadelphia 76ers aren't NBA champions right now. Because
exactly right.
I will be honest, the 76ers could have won the chip that season. Like,
anybody,
injuries or no injuries to the Golden State Warriors, the 76ers could have won that championship that season because they had, that was, like Jerm said, that was the best team in recent memory that the Philadelphia 76ers ever put on the floor. Championship caliber. Like, it just worked beautifully, but Ben Simmons just, whatever. Going from one guy that probably won't play to two guys that may or may not play, it's up in the air. The Mavericks are playing right now, and Luka Doncic is on the floor. They have the Jazz. The Warriors star Steph Curry. We don't know when he's coming back because
They said he was playing. They said he was playing. So
they said he was playing. So he'll be on a minute restriction. We'll see how that all works out. Can the Mavericks and the Warriors get past the Jazz and the Nuggets respectively without their star players?
So the Warriors can, because even if Steph misses one game, the talent disparity is too much. So unless Michael Porter Jr. and Jamal Murray step out of the healing chamber that Goku was in before he fought Frieza, and Goku won that game in 7, won that series in 7 games. There's no way that the Warriors, Jokic can't do it by himself. Clay is back. Draymond, who didn't play any of the games during their series, even though the Nuggets took the season series, Draymond didn't play any of those games. Now, the Nuggets have good players. I like Monte. I was going to say Monte Harris. What's that guy's name? Dang,
Monte Morris.
Morris, yeah, Monte Morris and Will Barton. I like those guys, but they're not Klay Thompson. They're not Jordan Poole. They're not Gary Payton III or second or junior, whatever his name is, and they're not like the team. The team is too deep for the Warriors. Yeah. So I don't. Again, Jokic doesn't have any help. it'll be like, and then there's style, right? Stylistically, you have the super fast-paced, jacking up shots, Golden State Warriors. Then you have the slow, surgical, methodical Denver Nuggets. I just, in playoff basketball, that works. That works when the talent disparity is close. I think the Nuggets, if they had Jamal Murray and Michael Porter, that slow, methodical would neutralize what Golden State wants to do. But Golden State's just going to outgun them. I mean, it's just that simple for me.
Go ahead, Steezy.
Yeah, I think with the Warriors, I gotta agree with Jerm. I mean, you look at the Denver Nuggets. One of my co-hosts on the Bolt yesterday, he talked about how the Denver Nuggets' second leading scorer is Aaron Gordon, and he's averaging 15 points a game. So offensively, they're just. I mean, Jokic is gonna do his thing. He's definitely gonna do his Dougie. He'll probably put up 30-point triple doubles like he's accustomed to doing. Golden State's definitely gonna have a hard time stopping him, but outside of him, who else are you really worried about? I mean, Will Barton, he's a nice, spark plug off the bench, or I know he's been starting this year, but he's not even the second leading scorer on this team. If he was averaging, somewhere around 18, 19, like we've seen in the past, then maybe I'd take Denver a little bit more seriously. But even if Golden State doesn't have a 100% Stephen Curry, you still have threats all over the place. Jordan Poole's been on an absolute tear. Andrew Wiggins, for as much flack as he's taken for being an all-star this year, is averaging close to 20 a game. Draymond obviously is going to do his thing defensively. And off the bench, they have a plethora of wings. Jonathan Kuminga, Otto Porter Jr. We haven't even talked about Klay Thompson. So I think at the end of the day, they're just the better basketball team. And Denver, they're going to sorely miss Jamal Murray, Michael Porter Jr. And I think Golden State advances in 6.
Well, I think Steph could miss the entire series and the Warriors will be fine. It's obvious, though, that the Mavericks need Luka because without Luka, the Mavericks are nothing. And this is why I think that Luka Doncic had a better MVP case this season than Nikola Jokic, because the Mavericks are nothing without Luka. It'll be interesting to see what happens with Luka because it's a calf strain. We've seen most recently with a guy named Kevin Durant what a calf strain injury turned into be, and it was an Achilles. I don't think Luka's going to tear his Achilles. That's a completely different thing. Where we kind of already knew that was an Achilles. If you're the Mavericks, the best that you can do is hope that Luka is back before you get to Game 3. I think if Luka's not back by Game 3, then you can pretty much kiss this series goodbye. Because as much as I say that Rudy Gobert sucks, and he does. There's just, without Luka Doncic, the talent disparity between these two teams is just terrible. Now, Luka's a tough dude. He played that Clippers series last year with a pinched nerve in his neck. I don't know how he did that, but he did it. So I'm sure that if he can't go, if he can't go by Game 2, he's going to try to do everything he can to go by Game 3, despite whatever the doctors try to tell him to not. Luka's a pretty hard-headed fella. He's going to do whatever he wants. But if Luka's back, the Mavericks are going to win this series. And it won't be close. If Luka steps back on the floor for the Mavericks, as long as they're not down 3-0, because by that point you can just kiss it goodbye.
Yeah.
As long as they're not down 3, even if they're down 2-0, I think the Mavericks can still come back and win this series as long as Luka comes back. Because similarly with Luka in the Mavericks, the Jazz really don't have anyone outside of Donovan Mitchell as far as that you can consistently rely on to produce offensively. Jordan Clarkson had that great season last season coming off the bench, but then he's kind of dwindled down a bit. Joe Ingles has always been kind of like an up or down kind of guy. Steezy, you know how I feel about Rudy Gobert. Rudy Gobert sucks offensively. Defensively, you have to hide. The fact you have to hide a 3-time Defensive Player of the Year within your defensive scheme is just absurd to me, and it just further proves why he should not be a 3-time Defensive Player of the Year. So really, it'll turn into a war of Luka versus Donovan Mitchell, and Luka's better than Donovan Mitchell by a lot. It's not even close. So if Luka comes back, then it's not. If Luka comes back, then I think I think this series will get interesting. So for my sanity, I hope Luka does come back, because I don't want to see the Utah Jazz in the second round of the Western Conference playoffs, because I think they're the ultimate front runners, and I just don't think they deserve to be in the second round of the playoffs. But what do I know? I just sit here with a podcast and talk trash about people that I'll never meet in real life. There are a lot of teams, a lot of interesting spots under pressure, right? The Philadelphia 76ers have got one with James Harden, Nikola Jokic, who may or may not be primed as being named a 2-time MVP. He may be under some pressure. Giannis Antetokounmpo, reigning defensive champion, he's got some pressure. Devin Booker has raised his stock himself by saying he deserves to be in the MVP conversation. So there's a lot of guys all over the place in these playoffs under a lot of pressure. Gentlemen, which player is under the most pressure this postseason and why?
Man, I got to go with the easy answer. It's James Harden. You know, I know he told the people, he told America otherwise, but I think we all know the answer. And James Harden, that was player speak. I mean, what do you expect him to say? Oh, yeah, you know, I have a whole lot of pressure on myself. You know, I've failed in the playoffs. I've choked in the playoffs. There's this narrative about me, and I'm looking to change that. So, yeah, there's a lot of pressure on my shoulders. No player's going to go out and say that, or at least I don't think I've ever heard a player go out and say that. Maybe there's a few that I'm missing, but with the James Harden, I think he has all the pressure in the world. I mean, he forced his way out of Brooklyn. And that team, if he was still on that team would be the leading frontrunners to win the NBA title this year. And so if he left that team to go to the Sixers, he better at least go to the finals or win a chip, do something. And as we all know, I mean, the playoff failures or whatnot, whether or not you attribute it to, you know, the game slowing down in the playoffs, whether or not you attribute it to him not drawing as many calls, whether or not you attribute it to him having such a heavy workload in the regular season to where he kind of breaks down in the playoffs, whatever you attribute it to, he hasn't had a lot of success in the playoffs. And there's this narrative about him. He definitely has to change that. So I think this is easy. It's James Harden by a landslide. Excuse me.
Yeah. Steezy, I love your energy. Love it. And you got the right team. You just have the wrong player. It's not James Harden. It's Joel Embiid. For the simple fact that the pressure in a team game is always on the better player. Who's the best player on the Sixers? It's Joel Embiid. Who's the franchise player? Who's the guy who's been there? It's Joel Embiid. Gentlemen, the book is already written on James Harden. Marcus, you were with me with Justin, and I believe I said that before the trade even happened. I don't want James Harden. He will make the Sixers worse. And indeed, I think he has. We were much better off with the Halliburton Buddy Hield trade or the reported Derek White, DeJounte Murray trade. We were better off with just CJ McCollum. But Daryl Morey has an infatuation, a sick infatuation with James Harden. And so here we are. The book is written on James Harden. He's past his prime. To me, he's nothing more than a role player. And I think he's accepted that role in these last couple of weeks because the team seems a little bit more fluid. So the pressure to me is no longer on him. We only needed him to come in here and be a better version of Ben Simmons. The last, I would say, month or so, he's had double-digit assists in almost every game. That's all we need him to do, facilitate, hit an open three-pointer. He hasn't been shooting the ball very well, but at least he's taking the shots and keeping the defenses honest, which opens the game up for Joel Embiid to continue his MVP run. So for me, there is no pressure because it's Embiid's team. He's the alpha. There has been so much. The book is not yet written on Joel Embiid, even though the Sixers and him have had some playoff lapses. We talked about the Toronto series with the luckiest shot of all time. You have the image of Joel Embiid crying in the tunnel, things like that. He is the MVP frontrunner, or one of them. To me, the pressure is always on the top guy. Philly was the story of the NBA because of Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid. For years, people were actually clamoring to trade Joel Embiid because of his injury concerns. He has molded himself and put himself in a position to be the face of the league. There's not a bigger character in the NBA right now than Joel Embiid. And so, I mean, people have highlights of him and Jordan and Kobe doing the same exact moves. So, again, the sun has set on James Harden. He's right. There is no pressure on him because everybody kind of already knows what the deal is. And like Steezy said, it's not like he's supposed to come out there and say, yeah, I suck. It's just, but for me as a fan of the Sixers, I know what I'm getting with James Harden. I don't need him to go out there and score 45 points. I need him to get Joel Embiid the ball. I need him to facilitate and get other players the ball. So, for me, Joel Embiid definitely has the most pressure on him because this entire season was about the Sixers and the drama and picking the city picking Joel Embiid as its leader, and now he has to go out there. He's talked all the talk, and now he has to walk it.
I feel like I sometimes I love Steezy. Sometimes I feel like Steezy says things just daring to be different. Like it's Joel Embiid, and I feel like for all the reasons that Jerm listed, it's Joel Embiid. Now I don't. It's a basketball show, and me and Steezy are going to butt heads down the line about a lot of his AFC West takes, and we'll get to that. Again, just daring to be different, I think. But like it's Joel Embiid, and I don't think it's close. You can make an argument. Like there's an argument to be made that there are other players that are under more pressure, right? Obviously, the James Harden argument is an argument that you can make. You can make an argument that Chris Paul is under some pressure this season. You can make an argument that maybe Jimmy Butler is under some pressure this season. Like it's Joel Embiid and it's not even close. And I'm not going to get into all the Joel Embiid stuff because Jerm just did. Here's a guy that, and it's unfortunate. He's kind of lucky because no one thinks he's going to win a championship. But, and this is kind of just me ranting about why Nikola Jokic shouldn't be the MVP.
He shouldn't be the MVP because he's boring, Marcus. Can we stop this nonsense? He played 0 minutes in the All-Star game in the fourth quarter, the most important quarter of the All-Star game where all the best players play hard. Nikola Jokic played 0 minutes. Now, everybody laughs at me when I bring that up, but no, go look it up. It's the only quarter that matters when the best players all play together is the fourth quarter of the All-Star game. And Nikola Jokic played 0 of those minutes. So enough. He's not the MVP because he's boring. The Nuggets are boring. Nobody wants to see the Nuggets win a championship. Nobody wants to see Nikola Jokic in the finals. It'll be the lowest rated finals, I think, since the San Antonio Spurs. Nikola Jokic is the entire San Antonio Spurs franchise. He's just boring and nobody cares. Enough. All right, I'm sorry.
In the history of the NBA, there are, I believe, 13 players to have ever won multiple MVP awards. Of those 13, Giannis, Steph, Steve Nash, Tim Duncan, Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, Moses Malone, LeBron James, Wilt Chamberlain, Michael Jordan, Bill Russell, and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar are the only guys to win it in back-to-back years. That's a lot of talent there. Those are first ballot Hall of Famers. Nikola Jokic, I love Jokic. I think he's great. Jokic winning another MVP, a back-to-back MVP at that, being added to that list, just doesn't make any sense. And as much as I love Jokic and as much as I think Jokic is great, I don't know definitively yet if Nikola Jokic, I'm gonna get some heat for this. I don't know definitively if Nikola Jokic can be the best player on a championship winning basketball team. Like I don't know if I don't know if you can build around Nikola Jokic. It's very easy because he's a big man that can pass. Like it's very simple. Just put some guard and wings around that.
22% of his assists were off dribble handoffs. Enough of this, he can pass, and he's a good facilitator. Dog, the Nuggets have been fighting for playoff relevancy all year. The only reason they reached the 6th seed is because the other teams fell off. They were barely making the playoffs literally all year up until this last month and a half. And all of a sudden, he's the MVP. Get out of here.
I really don't know if Nikola Jokic is a caliber of player that you can put in that upper echelon. And so maybe because Nikola Jokic is on a bad basketball team, like, okay, if Michael Porter Jr. and if names are failing me.
Jamal Murray.
If Jamal Murray were there, right, I think undoubtedly Nikola Jokic would be under the most pressure. Because if you look across the group of guys in this playoff field that have won an MVP, Steph, he's a champion. Giannis, he's a champion. KD, he's a champion. Like all the other MVP or MVP caliber talent that most of them anyway that are in this playoff field this season have all won a championship or have all been really, really close to winning a championship. Nikola Jokic, if I'm not mistaken, has never been to the conference finals. I don't think.
Once in the bubble.
Which doesn't count. But doesn't count. But it's the bubble. And Jamal Murray led that team, by the way, all the way through the playoffs. He was the best player.
Like Jamal Murray. This is what I think. And Jamal Murray, I think, up until his injury, was the best player on the Nuggets. And I don't even think it was close. Like, I really don't think it was close because that team went as Jamal Murray went. Like, Jamal Murray was giving us 45 and 50-point games, like, in a war with Donovan Mitchell in the bubble in that playoff series. That was one of the greatest playoff series I've ever watched. I'm not that old.
Jamal Murray averaged 26.5 points, 6.5 assists, shooting 50% and 45% from three. He was the best player the Nuggets had in the bubble.
Now, if Nikola Jokic had Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr. at his disposal heading into this postseason, Jokic would 100% be under the most pressure in this playoffs, but he doesn't. So he's lucky. But it's Joel Embiid. I think it's obvious. Like he's the best player on the Sixers. Joel Embiid needs to rectify. Like the lasting image we have of Joel Embiid is him crying in the hallway of the Scotiabank Arena in Toronto a couple years ago. We got to replace that. Like whenever you think of, like if you look up Joel Embiid, that's one of the first pictures you see. We got to replace that. I think he's going to replace that this season. If it weren't for Ben Simmons folding last year, we would have replaced that last season with a picture of Joel Embiid holding the finals trophy in one hand and the MVP in the other. Hopefully he can do that this season. But yeah, like it's Joel Embiid. Steezy, stop. You're like Max sometimes. Stop daring to be different. You're daring to be different. Like we know.
But Steezy, media wise, he's right. Like James Harden, his playoff performances are the most noted thing about the playoffs. I'm just, for me as a fan of the Sixers, and I just feel like James Harden, especially after watching him these last few weeks, after not wanting him in the first place. And I was in the minority. My Reddit downvotes are crazy. I'm not even allowed to post because I said that this was an awful trade, and everybody destroyed me because I said it was an awful trade. And but this postseason is setting up rather nicely for Joel Embiid. We get the revenge on the Raptors in the first round, and then we can take out possibly the Atlanta Hawks in the second round, and then we can finish off our noted rival, the Boston Celtics, in the Eastern Conference Finals on our way to the chip. So let's go.
Wait, so Jerm, you got Atlanta beating Miami? You guys already talked about that series?
I do. Ice Trey's turned me into a believer.
We're gonna run down.
No, Jerm. I vehemently disagree. You can't talk about my Miami Heat like that.
Wait till you see in how many games. Steezy, go ahead. Go ahead, Marcus.
Just because I saw it on Twitter, we're gonna do it real quickly. We know who the front runners are as far as betting odds to win the championship, right? Phoenix is up there, Milwaukee's up there, Philly is up there as well, and so is Golden State, especially if Steph comes back. Who do you guys have as your dark horses to potentially run the table and win it all this season? If you have one,
I didn't see the odds. I don't even think Philly should be a favorite. They would be a dark horse for me, just because of matchups, man. Like, but I think in totality of the season, taking away these last couple months, to me, Boston would be a dark horse too. Like, I would be like, considering where they started with the new coach and how like they started really slow in the beginning of the year. They only really took off this last 2 months of the season. So to me, them winning going on this run, I can see them doing it, like realistically. I'm not going to say anything crazy like the Timberwolves. They don't have the talent, but Boston has shown they've already beaten the top teams in the East at full strength throughout the course of the season. I get the playoffs are a different monster, but Boston has the talent to actually beat everybody in the playoffs. So it'd be very interesting to see what happens.
Wow. I think for me, the darkest of horses, I got to go with my Miami Heat. I don't have them going to the finals or anything like that, but I feel like they're kind of just by virtue, or they're kind of just a byproduct of the fact that there's not really very many dark horses available, if that makes sense. So I'm going to roll with the Heat just because, look, they led the league in three-point shooting, almost 38% from the field. They have the sixth man of the year in a Tyler Hero. I think they have a top 3 candidate for a coach of the year in an Eric Spoelstra. They have an alpha dog in a Jimmy Butler. Last year, they were missing a guy that could kind of orchestrate offense outside of a Jimmy Butler. And this year, they have that in a Kyle Lowry, who I think, if I'm not mistaken, still leads the league in charges taken, if not at least in the top 2, top 3. But there's dogs everywhere. Kyle Lowry, Jimmy Butler, PJ Tucker, Bam Adebayo. And they're able to switch on anyone. I think there's not a team where they can't match up against, that team or this team or that team. They can match up with anyone. They have shooters. They have alpha dogs. They have, competent coaching. And there's still a Victor Oladipo. I'm not saying that we're going to see the all-star Victor Oladipo that we saw with the Indiana Pacers, but he's still kind of getting his feet under him. And I think come playoff time, he could be an X factor coming off the bench. The bench is deep. I know rotations do get shorter, but I think Miami has all the ingredients to be considered a dark horse.
I feel like because they're the 7th seed, I think you can shoe them in as a dark horse. It's the Brooklyn Nets. I still think, and I will die on this hill, I don't care what Justin Marvel or Neil Hoyt says, Kevin Durant's the best player on the planet. He's the best player on the face of the earth. I'm with that. And it's a disrespectful thing to Giannis to say that. Like, I just think Kevin Durant is better than Giannis. But I think as much as as much as he's been in and out of the lineup over the course of the season, Kyrie Irving being back means a lot. Because like I said last season, we watched Kevin Durant churn out classic all-time playoff performances, and he was an inch away from eliminating the Milwaukee Bucks by himself. He now has that other guy that not only can take off some of the load, but can also go off for that same 45, 50-point performance in the playoff game if necessary. I think that means a lot. I think their toughest challenge will be the Boston Celtics because of the mismatch defensively. But if they can get past the Boston Celtics and run into the Milwaukee Bucks, you can put the Brooklyn Nets in the conference finals, I think. And at that point, whether it's the Sixers, whether it's the Sixers, the Heat, or the Hawks, I think the Nets will have. I think they'll have enough to be able to get past any of those teams in a 7-game series, and you can put them in the finals. And then the only team on the other side that would maybe give me a cause for pause is the Phoenix Suns. That's because they're the best team in the league. They have the best coach in the league. They have one of the best mid-range, they have the best mid-range game in the league and 2 of the best mid-range shooters in the league. So that's it. But like I think because they're the 7th seed, they're a dark horse. But if you look at their talent, like when you have at any given point in time, they'll have 2 of the 5 best players on the court for a playoff series. So I'm going to say my dark horse is the Brooklyn Nets. Now, before we go.
Well, don't sleep on Memphis either. I was this close to picking Memphis, but don't sleep on Memphis.
Let's run down very quickly the series, and we'll just give our picks and who we have winning and how many games. We won't start with Miami and the Hawks. We'll end with them because I can tell that's very, very spicy. So we'll start in the Western Conference. I don't think we have to pick the first series, so we're not going to because I'm pretty sure we all have the Phoenix Suns washing the New Orleans Pelicans in 4 games. Not even a discussion.
Before we move on, NBA, you cost the Clippers a chance at the play-in game with this nonsense COVID protocols, keeping Paul George out. That's why the Clippers lost.
That's fair.
You got this
outrageous.
Outrageous.
Just push the game back.
God. All right. I'm sorry. Going to rant.
No, that's fair. That's fair. We kind of danced around some of these other series earlier, so we'll touch on them. We'll start with Dallas and Utah. Their game 1 is happening right now, if I'm not mistaken. Bogdanovich dropped 20 in the first half for Jazz, by the way. Dallas, Utah, who do you have winning and how many games?
Dallas in 7, and that's only because Luka's not playing right now. And he may not play game 2 probably, but Dallas in 7.
I'm going to go with you on that one. I'm going to say Dallas in 7.
Man, see, for me, I would roll with Dallas in 7, but this is a cash strain we're talking about. And with the Dallas Mavericks, look, they know within their heart of hearts they're not going to make any sort of run this year. Why waste, a year of Luka's prime trying to force them just so they can get into the second round? Yeah. So look, I think he doesn't play at all. I think after he misses game 2, they're going to be down 0-2, and then coming into game 3, he won't be 100%. So it's like, let's just shut him down. Utah in 5.
I'm not mad at that. That's a logical. I wouldn't be surprised. I shouldn't say. I just don't think it'll happen, but I wouldn't be surprised with that at all.
Golden State, Denver.
Warriors in 6, baby. I mean, let's keep it real. And it would have been Warriors in 5 if Steph was playing. You know what I'm saying? So, the Warriors in 5 or 6 or whatever I just said. Not 7. I give Golden State more respect than that. They're gonna wash these clowns.
Oh man, I need to hear Jerm and Justin, on the same show together because I know Justin was really on that Jokic for MVP train. I need to see that sometime soon. But we talked about this earlier. I think Golden State, with or without Steph, we talked about it. So Golden State in 6.
Golden State in 6. I mean, it's kind of easy. I think Denver will probably they'll definitely win 1 game at home. It's just Denver is a tough spot to play in because of the altitude, and the playoffs just kind of makes it a little bit difficult. So they'll definitely win 1 game at home, and then maybe they'll win another or steal one on the road. Who knows? Memphis and Minnesota. This time, Steez, we'll start with you.
Ooh. This is going to be one of my favorite series. We're going to definitely see a dog fight. There's a whole bunch of dogs on both sides. But I think ultimately, Memphis, they're such a well-rounded basketball team. Depth, they're well-coached. They're 21-2 without a John Morant. Fast break points, they led the league. Blocks per game, steals per game, rebounds per game. Man, so I wanted to see Minnesota go on a run, but not this year. Memphis in 7.
Yeah, I'm going to go Memphis in 6 for the exact same reasons. I just think I think it's too much, and of course, Minnesota has Karl Anthony Towns, so you already know. Geez.
Triple J is going to feast on Cat. I got Memphis in 5. I think Minnesota will still win game. Like they'll still 1 game on the road, but like Memphis is just far and away the better team. They're both young teams, but like you can make a legitimate argument that 3 of the 5 best players on the court in this series play for the Memphis Grizzlies. Like like you've got you've got Triple J. Like I don't know. I don't once you get past Anthony Edwards and I guess Cat by default because he's kind of turned himself into this thing that he's not. Like I think he's not, dude.
I think you're sleeping on D'Angelo Russell a little bit.
Betting on yourself.
Yeah.
End of the season on a high note.
Yeah.
I love D'Lo, but the difference as far as what D'Lo can do, and as far as like what some of the other guys coming off the bench can do in Memphis, like I think similarly to what we were talking about earlier with KD and JT both being able to cancel each other out with production. Like I think Desmond Bane or Dylan Brooks can match whatever D'Angelo Russell gives.
Dylan Brooks can guard Anthony Edwards for sure. So I guess it just
and that could very well be the difference because as I said earlier, Anthony Edwards is going to be the best player in this series for the minute. He's going to have to be the best player in the series for Minnesota if Minnesota wants to pull the rabbit out of the hat and knock off the Timberwolves. We talked about it a little bit earlier, but we'll get into it more specifically. Boston, Brooklyn, Jerm, who you got and how many games?
I already said it, Boston, and I'm gonna give. I like Kevin Durant, so I'm gonna give him the respect he deserves, and I'll say Boston in 7. I just think that Boston's defense is going to be too much. I think Brooklyn's going to do like a quick 2-game lead, and then after that it'll just be bully ball from the Boston Celtics.
Hey, look, like I said earlier, Boston, they need Robert Williams. He was a part of that turnaround. I know Derek White has definitely added another dimension to this Boston offense, but they need a Robert Williams if they're going to take advantage of, some of the weaknesses that Brooklyn has on the interior. And I just can't imagine a healthy Kyrie Irving and a Kevin Durant-led basketball team losing in the first round. I know the Boston Celtics are the number 2 seed. I know they are the best defensive team in basketball, but like I said, Brooklyn has the 2 best players in the series, Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, and ultimately that's what's going to propel them past the Boston Celtics in 7.
I'm with Steezy. Brooklyn in 7. I've been saying it all show ad nauseum, but like the Brooklyn Nets got pretty far. Like they were on the cusp without Kyrie. Kyrie being back definitely makes it worth it. Similarly to the first round series with the Suns and the Pelicans, I think we can all agree that the Bucks are going to wash the Bulls in 4 games as well. So we don't need to. We don't need to.
5.
You're just being nice.
I'm gonna get Chicago a game.
The Bulls are going to get washed by the
only reason they're not going to get a game is because Lonzo and Caruso, they're not at full strength. So it's just it was a nice story for Chicago. I like they're back in terms of relevancy. The injuries got them this year, and there's nothing wrong with that. They have a good team. They shouldn't hang their head. They shouldn't do any gross overcorrection heading into next season.
They're good. Yeah.
Just get healthy and then figure it out. Draft well. Try to add a key veteran, and figure it out from there. But yeah, they injuries just got them. That's all that is.
I think they're also a piece or 2 away, but we can't give DeMar DeRozan just 1 game.
No, because the only reason why
and Nikola Vucevic.
Okay, so I don't trust Nikola Vucevic at all. Like Giannis is going to have his way with Vuce, and it's not even going to be close. So this is my thing. I think Zach LaVine's great, but this is also Zach LaVine's first playoff series, number 1. Number 2, and most importantly, they're probably going to put Drew Holiday on Zach LaVine.
Oh,
he's going to have a long.
Yeah,
he is going to have a very long series. Now maybe they put Drew on DeMar because DeMar's their best player, but like they'll probably put him on Zach and just put all the focus on DeMar and try to have DeMar beat them. Which I don't think DeMar's going to be able to beat the Bucks by himself. He's going to need Zach LaVine, and if you put Drew on Zach LaVine's going to have a really long 4 nights in this first round. So
Bobby Portis is also going to be the X factor there. I mean, you still got Chris Middleton.
He was the X factor.
Yep.
He was the X factor in their championship run last season as well because he got hot in big moments when they really needed him to. Sixers, Raptors. I think we all know Jerm's going to have the Sixers winning this series. It's just a matter of how many games he has them winning in.
I have the Sixers winning in 7, and it's only because of that idiot Matisse Thybulle, who, unbelievable. You're sitting there talking about your holistic family. You pro-deathers out there in Australia or wherever you're from, but you have half of the vaccine already in you. What are you doing? You took one of the shots, and then all of a sudden it's
Yeah.
like, hey, we only eat tree bark and drink berry juice for our medicinal purposes. You idiot. We are trying to win a championship, okay? The selfishness is unbelievable. I feel the same, but Marcus, I said the same thing about Kyrie. He's out there
Yeah.
bathing himself in the Lake Minnetonka out there in Wyoming, and his team is struggling to make the playoffs. Like, what do you guys play?
Yeah.
You are under contract to play a game to win a championship. It's unbelievable how they come up with these excuses. So now you can't play in the Toronto games. Now we have the home court advantage. We have to win all 4 games. We have to. Like, the game tonight is game 1. It is a must-win game now. That's the pressure that Matisse Thybulle put on this team, because we have to win every home game, because we don't have our best on-ball and off-ball defender on the court, because his mom said you shouldn't take the second half of the vaccine. You're a grown-ass man, and she's in Australia. Get some balls, young man. All right, we need to win a championship. We don't have time for this. You see how much stress this team has been under because of Ben Simmons, who also is Australian. So there's probably something a little deeper, darker we should be talking about here between Matisse Thybulle and Ben Simmons. But yeah, Sixers in 7, and I'm cautiously optimistic because our playoff success, and we have James Harden. It's just there's a lot going on, and Matisse didn't make it any better.
Good.
Wow. Yeah. Honestly, I have the same reasoning as a Jerm. I think obviously Philadelphia, they're the better basketball team, but not having their best wing defender, and they're already light on wing defenders to begin with. Toronto, they have a plethora of wings. I mean, OG Anunoby, Scotty Barnes, Pascal Siakam is turning up down the stretch. Fred VanVleet is definitely going to be a threat. They're well coached by Nick Nurse, and so they're definitely going to win a couple of games here and there. I think they stretch it all the way to 7, but Philadelphia, they're the better basketball team. They have a Joel Embiid. Philadelphia in 7.
I've got Philly in 5.
Wow.
That's just me just buying way too much stock into Joel Embiid. It'll probably be Philly in 7, but I have faith that Joel Embiid's going to go back and he's going to remember him. He's probably got over his bed a picture of him crying in the hallway, and that's his motivation to destroy the Raptors. Before we get into the last series of the first round, I just want to give mention to the fact that the Jazz are up 8 heading into the fourth quarter, 73-65 over the Mavericks. Now, this is the part where I'm going to sit back and shut up and let my 2 good men here duke it out, because clearly Steezy's a Hawks Heat fan, and he's going to have the Heat coming out. Jerm has already mentioned that he's got the Hawks coming out of the first round. So this is the ratings boost part of the show, where if there's any time where you're going to want to listen start to finish, this would be that segment. Jerm, I'll start with you. You have the Hawks winning. So now I guess I got to ask, why do you have the Hawks winning? And in how many games do you have the Hawks beating the Heat?
Too much firepower. Too many snipers. And the best sniper in the game, because Steph Curry's not playing. Okay. And he is a villain. This is evil Steph Curry on the opposite side, and he loves it. And that's exactly why. And the Miami are paper champions. Yeah, they had the number 1 seed all year because they ran through a bunch of easy opponents and just kept the momentum going. But they've cooled off a little bit. The Heat have cooled off. Bam's coming back. I get it. It's cool. But Ice Trey made me a believer. He's coming for blood. And it's exactly why the Hawks will defeat and upset those Miami Heat in 6 games. I'll give the Miami Heat a little bit of respect, but too much shooting, Tyler Hero, too many Instagram models, too much Miami nightlife. The playoffs are different. Right? It's okay. Jimmy Butler, not the Jimmy Buckets of old. I don't know if he can do it. It's going to hinge on Bam Adebayo, but this is playoff basketball, baby. I mean, where's the Miami Heat? They have the best coach in this series. I love Eric Spoelstra. I think he's great. I wish he was the coach of the Sixers. We'd have a championship by now. But I think this is Ice Trey's year, and there has to be an upset in the playoffs. That's the rules, guys. And there isn't really any upsets brewing. There's nobody really that you would be like, they have a chance. No, the Hawks have the best chance to pull off an upset in the entire playoffs, and we know statistically it has to happen.
I can respect that. I thought you were going to say something crazy like it's going to be a sweep or a gentleman's sweep. But 6 games? Okay, now I can definitely respect that. I think that You're right, Jerm. I think that if there is going to be an upset, it is going to be in this series just because, look, Miami is my team, and I did label them as a dark horse earlier, but I wasn't ever sold on them being the number one seed either. Like I think if I had to give a power rankings of my top teams in the East, they wouldn't even be in my top three. I got Brooklyn, Milwaukee, and Philadelphia in no order. And so Miami isn't even in my top three. But against an Atlanta, I think they have all the defenders, all the dogs in the world to not stop Trey Young, because you can't stop an ice Trey, but to contain an ice Trey. I mean, Kyle Lowry's going to be bugging all series long. Jimmy Butler's going to be bugging him all series long. PJ Tucker might even be on him a few times here and there all series long. Bam Adebayo could guard wings, bigs, and guards. He can keep up with guards. He's that athletic. He's that fast. He has the foot speed, the foot quickness. I think he can keep up with them. I think Miami's very well coached, like you already alluded to. And with Miami and Atlanta, these are actually the top two shooting teams in basketball. They were 1 and 2, 38% for Miami, and then Atlanta slightly under 38. But I think with Atlanta, look, Clint Capella, hyperextended knee. How many games is he going to miss? John Collins still hasn't been back in action. And so I know they have a Bojan Bogdanovic, a Danilo Gallinari, Kevin Huerter, and a Trey Young. But outside of that, who else do they have? DeAndre Hunter, I'm not worried about him. And so I think Miami ultimately, they take this in 6. It's going to be too much. They have the defenders to throw at an ice Trey. So if ice Trey isn't doing his Dougie, who can you trust not in Atlanta? Lou Williams I haven't even seen him playing forever. And so you can't say Lou Williams. And Nate McMillan, I love what he's been doing, as the coach. But I think last year, and I'm not trying to take anything away from their run to the Eastern Conference Finals, but I think a lot of us would say that their run to the Eastern Conference Finals last year was really because of all the injuries and everything that happened in the East. Look, I like Atlanta, but this year it's not their year. I think Miami defensively, they're too much. Top 5 team in terms of least amount of points allowed. And Atlanta doesn't have their other threats. Give me Miami in 6.
I got Miami in 5. Here's the thing. Going into last night's play-in game, I said whoever Atlanta faced, they would win in 7, whoever it was. Then Clint Capella got hurt, and yes, I think that Clint Capella is a 3-game swing as far as the difference between winning and losing playoff series, for the simple fact that now there's not a reliable big body to go one-on-one with Bam Adebayo down low. Do I think Clint Capella can handle Bam Adebayo and all of his versatility? No. But as far as battling with the boards, as far as just being a presence, like a presence that's going to alter shots and really make a difference and make Bam work for it, that's major. Hyperextended knee, he's going to miss at least 2 games, I think. And I think that's all Miami needs because they have the first 2 games of the series at home. I think Atlanta will win their games at home as well, but I wouldn't at all be surprised as well though if the Heat can steal a game. Like I've got it going Heat, Hawks, Heat. Like it's Trey Young has become, I think, the thing that we've so desperately been missing in the NBA for the past couple of seasons, and that's a villain. Like we haven't had a hardcore villain in the NBA in a while, right? Like at first it was LeBron. At first it was LeBron, right when LeBron left Cleveland to go to Miami.
Yeah, but he wasn't a hardcore villain. I think he was trying, but he's too nice.
Yeah, we all villainized him. He was the media villain. We all villainized KD when he left OKC to go win his championships and Golden State. But like after that, we haven't really had that. This is the bad guy in the NBA. And last year, Trey Young not only kind of filled that role by default because of the perceived media feel-good story that was the New York Knicks after being so terribly bad all this time and then finally find their way into the playoffs. And then we got playoff basketball back in Madison Square Garden for the first time in what seemed like forever, right? Trey Young said, okay, now sit down and shut up and beat him in 5 games, right? He does that again by beating the other sweethearts of this season, the Cleveland Cavaliers, on the road in Cleveland. So he's definitely stepped into that villain role. I love it. Yeah, if Clint Capella was in this series, I would absolutely have the Atlanta Hawks in 7 because I think that Clint Capella makes a difference. Not offensively, right? He granted, Clint Capella can give you 12 and 15 any given night, and that does matter. But when I'm looking at Clint Capella, I'm just mainly talking about who now is going to be the big body down low that can go head to head with Bam Adebayo offensively and defensively, as far as not so much matching points, but as far as boards and just defensive presence. Now they don't have that, which means that Bam's going to be able to feast down low a lot more than maybe he would have if Clint was there, which now also means, number 2, that's probably going to be the focus of Miami Heat, is just to feed Bam. Like, we could see the best 5, however many games this series goes, this could be the best stretch of games of Bam and Adebayo's career because there's not really a force of opposition down low in the paint. Right, the Heat have more than enough bodies to throw at Trey Young. You've got your Jimmy Butlers and you got your Kyle Lowrys and you have your PJ Tucker, and like there's even guys off the bench like your Gary Vincents and your Max Strauss and guys like that who they might not be the most prolific defenders, but it's still bodies that you can it's still bodies that you can throw at Trey Young to try to slow him down. So that's kind of my line of thinking. But yeah, I've got the Heat in 5. It'll be interesting to see Jimmy Butler and the Heat go up against Joel Embiid and the Philadelphia 76ers in the second round. That's what I want to see. That's what I want to see.
Hey, Dwayne, I just wanted to add too, and Jerm, Bam Adebayo is your defensive player of the year, if I'm not mistaken. At least the last time,
Mine
kind
too.
of, and yours as well. So we can't forget about that. And one more thing. So when I was watching the Hawks and the Cavs last night, I think it was pretty close, right? In the fourth quarter, last 5 to 6 minutes of the game, but then Cleveland started switching everything, and it had 3 bigs on the floor. And so Ice Trey was literally tearing them up. The thing with Miami, and I alluded to this earlier in the show, there isn't a team out there that they can't match up against. And so when you're starting 5, when your center, Bam Adebayo, can also guard wings and guards, I think with Atlanta, you can't just switch everything and expect Ice Trey to just exploit that, because with Miami, you can't do that. Not against the defensive player of the year and a Bam Adebayo, and behind or in front of him, you have a Jimmy Butler, one of the stingiest perimeter defenders, and then also alongside of him, a Kyle Lowry, another stingy defender. Look, Trey Young's gonna have to work, and I know he can still, provide an impact in the game if he's not scoring the basketball. Obviously, he's top 5 in assists. Mm-hmm. But last year, Ben Simmons was able to neutralize him. What was it in the last game of the series? Ice Trey shot 5 for 22. And I'm not saying Jimmy Butler is a Ben Simmons, but we have seen Trey Young kind of been neutralized in the past, and I think Miami is just the worst possible matchup for him.
100%. I mean, I love Trey Young. Trey Young is great. I at this point in his career, when you look across the landscape of the NBA, I don't think that you can name more than 3 guys at the point guard position that are better than Trey Young. Like, and I feel like you might be hard pressed to go 3. Like at this point, I think Steph and Luka are kind of like just they're on their own tier. I'm hard pressed to find a 3rd guy that's better than Trey Young at the point, like as a point guard.
There's a couple. I mean, he's
not saying that they're
somewhere
hard,
in the,
but I think once you get past Steph and Luka, it kind of becomes like, is the gap that big between whoever that other person is?
Yeah, I mean,
he's
that's
the
one that jumped out. Yeah,
CP3. Yeah, so outside of those 3 guys, I don't know if you can name another point guard.
Yeah, Kyrie. I mean, there's a few.
A healthy Dame.
I'd give the edge to Trey.
You're taking Trey over Dame?
I love Dame. I love Dame. I really do. The only reason I think at this point, the only reason why I would give the edge to Trey over, and it's the gap's not that big, and I go back and forth on it all the time. I think the only thing, the difference for me between Trey and Dame is, it's really just like, if there's anybody that's on that level with Dame as far as like rising to the occasion in big moments, it's Trey. And what we've seen over the last couple of, at least these last 2 seasons, is that Trey not only like rises to the moment, he like embraces it. And it's not just a fourth quarter thing with him. Like it's a full 48 thing of like Trey Young is he's gonna do what he's got to do to put the backpack on. He's gonna be ruthless with it. I think Trey's better than Dame.
Dame is being punished for playing in the Western Conference, and that's all it is, because there really isn't any difference other than the level of talent that he's had to try to go past. And
that's true. That's true.
And so I think if he was a New York Knick, or if he was a Sixer, oh my God! I mean,
I'd love for Dame. I would love for Dame.
You guys are winning the chip if you guys had Dame this year.
Nope.
If he was healthy.
But big fat ass walrus Daryl Morey wanted James Harden, so it doesn't really matter.
But Dame with an Embiid, oh my gosh, I wanted to see that. I really wanted to see. I'm not even a Sixers fan, but I wanted to see that.
That'd be great.
Wow.
It's interesting. Like I said, I think Trey Young and Dame, you're splitting hairs as far as like who's better. I think.
Dame has to go to a better team. Dame has to go to a better situation for me to say that for real. Like I would, yeah, obviously the Sixers, but like, he would have to go pair up with somebody and let me see that for real. Or play in the Eastern Conference by himself, like Trey does pretty much.
Mhm.
I would have to see that before I could make that. And I like Trey Young. I like everything he's doing. He's younger. He's had some big moments, but I think, like I said, Dame is just much like, it's hard to say it. Like James Harden gets a lot of flack for his lack of playoff success, but he had to play against those Warriors teams. Like it's hard. Like it's really hard.
You know what? For a long time, I was so willing to give James Harden the Warriors pass. But then there was that series when KD went down with his injury the first time that year.
No,
and,
for sure. He's
and
had
the
blacks
Rockets
to playoff. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like that. I think that's when you get your for lack of a better term, your Warriors card revoked, right? Like Jokic and Dame and all these other talented players that have had to go through the buzzsaw that is the Golden State Warriors in the playoffs at some time. They'll get it. Like, and it sucks for Dame because in that Western Conference Finals series when they were matched up against the Warriors, they had a double-digit lead heading into the fourth quarter, all four of those games, and the Warriors just flipped the switch. It was great. James doesn't get the Warriors card pass because he had a prime opportunity to get past the Warriors twice. And he choked the first time and then the second time in the very same series, the worst shooting night in the history of the sport.
12.
Yeah, that's bad.
27 consecutive missed three-pointers. And no one thought, let's try mid-range.
The Sixers,
and they were at home. And they were at home.
Hey, the Sixers play at 6:00, man. Stop putting this bad juju on me about James Harden, man. We need him to play up.
Well, we're gonna get out of here. Before we do, there's a couple of things I just want to go over. Jazz are currently up 81-74 over the Mavericks. 7 minutes left in the game. We'll get out of here in enough time because the Timberwolves and the Grizzlies play at 3:30. Jerm and then Steezy, could you please let everybody know where to find you guys and your content and what's up next for you?
Yeah, I am Jerm, one half of Stuff About Sports. You can find us at Stuff About Sports on Instagram and Facebook, and then youtube.com/Give Us a Shot Network, because we are part of the Give Us a Shot Network, www.giveusashot.network. Hashtag Stuff About Sports in your Googles. If you can't find us, you're not looking hard enough. Up next, we have a new episode Wednesday, and then on Friday, Mike from The Divide is passing through, heading down to Myrtle Beach. He'll stop in my town. In Leland, North Carolina, and we're going to do a live show under the network umbrella from the Brunswick Beer Exchange. So that'll be fun. I don't know exactly what we're going to talk about, but we're going to have some giveaways. It'll be a fun little thing. So that'll be a nice busy next week for us.
Yes, sir. Hey, Dwayne, as always, bro, thanks for having me on. It's been a while. To everyone out there, at Stuff About Sports, at Go Talk Podcast with Marcus, and last but not least, at Steezy A Smith, primarily on YouTube, but you can find me on other socials at Steezy A Smith, as you can see in the handle down below. I did just drop my first episode of my little mini series on my channel. I'm doing like a Seahawks big board, and first on my big board is Sauce Gardner. So I did just drop that last night. If you guys haven't already, or if you're a Seahawks fan, definitely be sure to check that out.
Bring Baker to Seattle. Baker to Seattle.
Please check out
Kaepernick. Sorry,
I'm with that.
Please check these guys out in their content. You can find me on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok at GTP Marcus. Thank you guys for watching. If you're listening, thank you for listening. Follow, subscribe, turn on notification bells, leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. 4 things before we go. Number 1, my birthday is at the end of next month. It's in about 6 weeks at this point. We're sitting at 86 subscribers. I'd love it if by the end of May we can get that to 100. We'll probably do a giveaway once we get there, if we get there. So please smash that subscribe button. Number 2, my good guy, Dita, he has his own clothing brand. It's called Kano Junior Couture. Follow him on Instagram and TikTok at Kano Junior Couture, and go on his website, KanoJuniorCouture.com, to check it out. Really awesome stuff. My other good guy, Linwood, he has a song on Spotify and all other DSPs. It's called Glow, GLOW, exclamation point. Artist Linwood, L, exclamation point, NWOOD. Please go give it a stream. And last but certainly not least, one of the most important people to me, and one of the people that have really crafted me and helped me get to where I am right now. Her name is Miss Jessica Brown. She is the president, founder, CEO. She's got a lot of different hats. She's got a thing. It's called College Girl Foundation. Because of COVID and everything that's been going on, it's been a while. But after 2 years, the annual College Girl Foundation Scholarship Luncheon is back. It is June 4th, I believe. But you can go and follow her or go on Instagram at College Girl Foundation. Click the link in her bio to purchase tickets to the luncheon or to donate to the foundation. Very awesome foundation. They go on a college tour every year so that people that look like me can find ways to get into college. It's very great. You should check it out. Give it a listen. I think that's everything. I'm getting old and I have a bad memory. Not as old as Jerm, though.
Not as old as me. I don't know. Not as old as me. I don't know. I'm about to say.
This light is.
I made the.
All of those things will be in the description of this video, and also I'll be talking about them on Instagram as well. So please go check all those awesome things out.
Before we go, I made a comment earlier about before Steezy jumped on. If the Timberwolves should have been celebrating the way they've been celebrating, and I made the comment that the Seattle Supersonics have won a playoff series more recently than the Timberwolves, and I almost had to explain
that's going to stay true,
and it maybe stay true, but I had to explain to Dwayne Marcus who exactly the Supersonics are because I'm pretty sure he wasn't alive the last time they played basketball.
I was. I think KD was drafted in 2007. They were still in Seattle when he was drafted.
They played 1 year.
They played that 1 year. So I was alive.
Russell Westbrook was technically drafted by the Supersonics, but they
changed. The move wasn't official. Yeah, the move to Oklahoma City with the new name and all that stuff wasn't official.
Sad. It's coming. Hey, Steezy, it's coming, man. Don't worry about it. It's coming. Don't worry.
Basketball in Seattle.
Next 5 to 7 years. 5 to 7 years.
Speaking of which, I got the hoodie on. I'm gonna start doing WNBA content as well because the WNBA season starts in 3 weeks. And I feel like I should have been doing it and I haven't. So I'm gonna start doing that as well. But yeah, see, don't disrespect Stewie and the Seattle Storm.
Oh no, never. Yeah, we got the Storm holding it down, but I'm just saying, man, we got too much talent, in men's hoops to not have a team, and not have an NBA team. Like, come on, dog.
Free Brittany Griner too, by the way.
Yeah.
They're waiting because they're gonna have to find a team to put in the Eastern Conference. That's
what the new scuttlebutt is. They're gonna just do 4 expansion teams, expand the league into 4, and
it's not gonna be 2, it's gonna be 4.
They're gonna be 4. That way they can just do them all at once because of zonings or something. So like Vegas, it's looking like Vegas and Seattle are locks, but now they have to find East Coast teams
for the East.
So we'll see.
They'll probably.
I wonder what's on the East.
What city in the East deserves a
I'm thinking
maybe I don't know. Maybe they put a team in North. Like, I don't know. Is North Carolina a spot that needs a team? I mean, it's possible, right? Like you
College
got
City. I mean, you could. That's probably
they're probably gonna find a team they're gonna find a city that's not, or a state that's not already dominated by college sports. Like Seattle's not. It's Seattle. Like, there's nothing wrong with.
Add another Canadian team, Montreal or something like that, and then you could probably do like a Baltimore, or you could do Carolinas.
Don't put a basketball team in Baltimore.
I'm just throwing out names. I mean, who knows? You can either add, the easiest thing to do is do like Montreal, another Canadian team.
I love that. Yeah,
and then do like a city that has the 3 other sports, right? Has a hockey, football, and baseball team, but doesn't have an NBA team. That's how they're going to maximize those dollars. Baltimore has that, right? So
that's true.
Or DC or whatever, I don't know, not DC, but that area. Just you got to find a city.
The Baltimore area.
The Baltimore area. Just find somewhere that has the 3.
They could go Pittsburgh. Probably because they've got the Pirates and they've got the Penguins and whatever the name of the other team is. They've got the Steelers. There it is. Yeah. Can't believe I just did that. So for Jerm, 1/2 of stuff about sports, and for Steezy A. Smith, this is Marcus of Go Talk with Marcus signing off. Thank you guys for watching and listening. And as always, enjoy the rest of your lives.
Peace.